Commander Velak stared at the readings on his screen for the third time. The numbers made no sense. His ship, the Stellar Antiquary, had been mapping the outer rim of the galaxy for 2 years. They found mostly empty space and dead rocks, but this was different. "Dr. Nith, come look at this," Velak called across the bridge. His voice carried the tension he felt in his chest. The xenoarchaeologist floated over in the low-gravity section of the ship. Her blue-scaled skin caught the light from the displays. As a member of the scholarly Zephyrian race, she had spent decades studying ancient civilizations. Nothing surprised her anymore, or so she thought. "What readings are you getting?" she asked, settling beside his console. "Energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. The pattern is completely alien, but it's artificial. Definitely not natural." Dr. Nith studied the data scrolling across the screen. The energy readings pulsed in complex patterns. Too complex for any known technology. How far away? 3 light hours. At the very edge of System ZX-47, we cataloged it as empty space last month. But something is there now? Something was always there. Our sensors just couldn't detect it until we got closer. Velak adjusted the controls. "I'm getting a visual now." The main screen flickered to life. Against the starfield hung a massive shape. Dark metal reflected no light. The vessel looked ancient, with smooth curves that seemed almost organic. It drifted silently through space, no signs of active propulsion. "By the 7 stars, Dr. Nith whispered. "How long has it been out here?" "Unknown. But the design doesn't match any civilization in our records." Dr. Nith felt excitement building in her chest. This could be the discovery of her career. A completely unknown species. "We need to board it. That might not be safe. We don't know if anyone is still alive over there. The energy readings suggest some systems are still active. Minimal power, but something is working." She turned to face him. "Commander, this could rewrite galactic history. We have to investigate." Velak nodded slowly. As a military officer, he preferred caution. But as an explorer, he understood the call of the unknown. "Prep the shuttle." Small team only. Full environmental suits. 2 hours later, their shuttle approached the alien vessel. Up close, it looked even more impressive. The ship stretched for kilometers, its hull marked with symbols that meant nothing to either of them. Dr. Nith recorded everything, her instruments working constantly. "There." Velak pointed to a section of the hull. "That looks like an airlock." The shuttle connected with surprising ease. The alien airlock seemed designed for universal docking, strange but convenient. They cycled through the connection and entered the unknown ship. Emergency lighting cast red shadows down empty corridors. The gravity felt similar to standard Confederacy ships. The air composition read as breathable, though they kept their suits sealed. Everything seemed built for humanoid beings, which puzzled Dr. Nith. Most galactic species had similar body plans, but the proportions here felt different. "The architecture is fascinating," she said, running her scanner along the walls. "These materials are unknown to our science, but the construction methods look surprisingly primitive in some ways." They moved deeper into the ship. Most rooms stood empty, but showed signs of recent habitation. Or recent by archaeological standards. Coffee cups sat on tables, their contents long since evaporated. Personal items lay scattered about as if the crew had left in a hurry. "Commander," Dr. Nith called from down the hall. "You need to see this." She stood before a sealed door marked with symbols. Her scanner showed massive energy readings from beyond it. Velak joined her and studied the markings. "Can you translate any of it?" "Not yet. But the energy patterns suggest cryogenic systems. Lots of them. They found the door controls and managed to activate them." The symbols on the panels looked almost familiar, but not quite. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Beyond lay a vast chamber filled with rows of cylindrical pods. Hundreds of them stretched into the distance. Each pod glowed with soft blue light. Status displays showed active life support systems. "Cryogenic storage," Velak breathed. "The entire crew is still alive." Dr. Nith approached the nearest pod. Through the transparent cover, she could see a face. The being looked remarkably humanoid, but with subtle differences. Shorter, with less prominent bone ridges, softer features than most galactic species. Hair grew from the top of its head in an unusual pattern. "I've never seen anything like them," she said. "But they're definitely intelligent. Look at their brain case proportions." Velak studied the readings on the pod's display. "Life signs are strong. These systems have been running for a very long time." "How long?" "The power signatures suggest thousands of years." maybe tens of thousands. They moved through the chamber examining more pods. Each contained a similar being. Men, women, children, all sleeping peacefully in their frozen dreams. Dr. Nith's excitement grew with each discovery. This is incredible. An entire population in perfect preservation. We could learn so much about their culture, their history. The question is whether we should wake them up. Dr. Nith paused. That was the real issue. These beings had been sleeping for millennia. Their civilization was probably long gone. What kind of life would they wake up to? We have to try with one of them, she said finally. Just to establish communication. To learn who they are? Velak agreed, though he felt nervous about it. They selected a pod containing what appeared to be an adult male. The revival process took several hours. They watched as the being's vital signs slowly strengthened. Color returned to his skin. Finally, his eyes opened. The being looked around in confusion, then fear. He tried to sit up, speaking words in an unknown language. His voice sounded remarkably clear, almost musical. Dr. Nith activated her universal translator, but it couldn't process the language. The being saw them and stopped talking. His eyes went wide. He looked at their equipment, their suits, the chamber around them. Slowly, understanding seemed to dawn on his face. He spoke again, more slowly this time. How long? The words came out broken but recognizable as galactic standard. You understand our language? Dr. Nith asked gently. Some. We studied many languages. Before... He paused, struggling with the words. How long have we slept? Dr. Nith exchanged a look with Velak. We're not sure, but your ship has been drifting for a very long time. What do you call yourselves? We are human. I am Marcus Chen. He sat up fully now, looking around at the other pods. Are the others safe? They appear to be fine. Marcus, where do you come from? What happened to your people? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried deep sadness. We came from Earth. It was our home world. We left because... He stopped, shaking his head. It's hard to explain. We had to leave. To protect everyone. Protect everyone from what? From what we might become. From what we might remember. Marcus looked directly at Dr. Nith. Tell me, do you know of humans in your histories? Have you heard of Earth? Dr. Nith searched her memory. Thousands of years of galactic history. Hundreds of species and civilizations. But no mention of humans or Earth. I'm sorry. I've never heard those names before. Marcus nodded as if he expected that answer. Good. That means it worked. The memory wipe was successful. Memory wipe. Velak stepped forward. What are you talking about? But Marcus had already closed his eyes. I need to wake the council. There are things you need to know. Important things. But first, tell me about your civilization. How many species are in your confederacy? As Dr. Nith began to explain their galaxy's current state, she noticed something strange. Marcus seemed to recognize some of the species' names she mentioned, not like someone learning new information, but like someone remembering something they had forgotten. The discovery was becoming more mysterious by the minute. 3 months had passed since the humans joined the Confederacy fleet. Dr. Nith found herself spending more time in the archives than ever before. What started as routine integration procedures had become something much larger. The humans were not what they seemed. Marcus Chen sat across from her in the research lab aboard the Confederacy station. Around them, holographic displays showed star charts and archaeological data. His people had adapted quickly to modern life, almost too quickly. They understood technology that should have been completely foreign to them. Tell me about Earth again, Dr. Nith said, adjusting the recording device between them. Marcus smiled sadly. It was a blue world. Lots of water. We called it the jewel of our space. But that was long ago. How long ago exactly? We left Earth approximately 50,000 years ago by our calendar. Dr. Nith felt a chill run down her spine. 50,000 years was longer than recorded galactic history. The oldest known civilization, the Vorthak Empire, had only existed for 30,000 years. Marcus, that's impossible. The galaxy's oldest civilizations haven't been spacefaring that long. I know how it sounds. Marcus leaned forward. But I remember the launch. I remember the ceremony where we sealed the ship. We knew we might never wake up, but why? Why leave your homeworld and sleep for so long? Marcus was quiet for a moment. We made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. We learned things that we shouldn't have learned. Found things that should have stayed hidden. Dr. Neith had heard this kind of vague explanation before. It never satisfied her scientific mind. What kind of things? Before Marcus could answer, Commander Valak entered the lab. His expression looked troubled. Dr. Neith, I need to show you something. Both of you. They followed him to the main archaeology lab. On the central table lay artifacts from various dig sites across the galaxy. Ancient pottery, metal fragments, stone carvings. Normal archaeological finds. Look at these symbols, Valak said, pointing to markings on several different pieces. We've been cataloging them for months. They appear on artifacts from worlds that are thousands of light years apart. Dr. Neith studied the symbols. They looked familiar, but she couldn't place where she had seen them before. Then Marcus stepped closer and his face went pale. Where did you find these? He asked quietly. Archaeological sites across the galaxy. Different species, different time periods, but always the same symbols. Valak picked up a stone tablet. This one is from the Corvin system. The archaeologists there dated it to 45,000 years ago. Marcus reached out and touched the stone. This is human writing. Ancient human script. That's impossible, Dr. Neith said. These artifacts predate your arrival in this part of the galaxy. No, Marcus said slowly. They don't predate our arrival. They predate our departure. The implications hit Dr. Neith like a physical blow. You're saying humans were already here? Before Earth? I'm saying humans were everywhere. Marcus looked around at all the artifacts. We had an empire that spanned most of the galaxy. These symbols mark our colonies, our trading posts, our research stations. Valak shook his head. But there's no record of any human empire in galactic history. Because we erased those records. We had to. Marcus sat down heavily. We couldn't let anyone remember what we had done. What we had found. Dr. Neith felt her worldview shifting. Everything she thought she knew about galactic history was wrong. Marcus, I need you to be completely honest with me. What really happened to humanity? Marcus was quiet for several minutes. When he spoke, his voice barely rose above a whisper. We found something in the deep void between galaxies. Something that should never have been disturbed. It changed us. Made us into something dangerous. Dangerous how? We became too powerful. Too curious. We kept pushing boundaries that should never be crossed. He stood and walked to the window showing the stars outside. Other species began to fear us. They had good reason to. So you left voluntarily? Some of us did. Others had to be convinced. Marcus turned back to them. The galaxy was heading toward a war that would have destroyed everything. So our leaders made a choice. We would erase ourselves from history and go into exile. Those who stayed behind would have their memories altered. Dr. Neith felt sick. An entire civilization just agreed to disappear? Not all of us agreed. But enough did. We knew it was the only way to preserve peace. Over the following weeks, Dr. Neith threw herself into research with new purpose. She examined every archaeological site in the Confederacy database, looking for signs of human presence. What she found disturbed her even more than Marcus's story. The evidence was everywhere once she knew what to look for. Human genetic markers in the DNA of supposedly ancient species. Technology that appeared suddenly in civilizations with no previous history of innovation. Architectural styles that spread across the galaxy too quickly for natural cultural exchange. But most disturbing were the gaps. Entire periods of galactic history that made no sense. Civilizations that seemed to forget their own origins. Species that developed space travel far faster than should have been possible. Commander, she said one evening, calling Valak to her lab. I think the humans didn't just erase themselves from history. I think they helped other species develop. What do you mean? Look at this data. She brought up a timeline of galactic civilization. Every major technological breakthrough in the last 50,000 years can be traced back to mysterious benefactors. Anonymous teachers who appeared, shared knowledge, then disappeared. You think those were humans? I think some humans never went into exile. I think they stayed behind, hidden, helping other species advance while keeping their own identity secret. Valak studied the data. But why? If they were so powerful, why hide? Because power corrupts. They learned that lesson the hard way. Dr. Neith pulled up another display. Look at this pattern. Every time a species gets too advanced too quickly, they encounter setbacks. Wars, plagues, social collapse. But never total extinction. Always just enough to slow them down. You're suggesting the humans have been managing galactic development for 50,000 years. I'm suggesting they've been preventing other species from making the same mistakes they did. That night, Dr. Knight couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the implications of her research. If she was right, then humanity had been the secret guardians of the galaxy for millennia. They had sacrificed their own civilization to protect everyone else. She found Marcus in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. You knew, didn't you? About the hidden humans? Marcus nodded. Some of us suspected. We hoped they would eventually reveal themselves. Why now? Why did you wake up now? Marcus turned to look at her. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked truly afraid. Because something is wrong. The systems that were supposed to wake us only activate under specific conditions. What conditions? When the containment begins to fail. Containment of what? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. The thing we found in the void. The reason we went into exile in the first place. He looked back at the stars. Dr. Neth, we weren't just running away from our own mistakes. We were running away from something else. Something that wanted to use our mistakes against the entire galaxy. Is it still out there? Yes, and I think it's getting stronger. Dr. Nith felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's air conditioning.
How do you know?
Because the other humans are starting to wake up. Not just on our ship. All of them. Across the galaxy. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. The alarms are sounding, Dr. Nith. After 50,000 years of sleep, we're being called back to duty. The revelation changed everything. What Dr. Knight had thought was a simple first contact situation was actually the beginning of something much larger. The return of humanity meant something terrible was coming, and the galaxy wasn't ready for it. Dr. Neith watched in amazement as Marcus stood before the ancient ruins on Kepler 7. The archaeological site had been dormant for decades. Now symbols carved into black stone began to glow with soft blue light. How are you doing that? She asked, her instruments recording everything. Marcus looked confused. I'm not doing anything. I'm just remembering. The awakened humans had begun experiencing these episodes 3 weeks ago. Standing near certain archaeological sites triggered vivid memories that felt both foreign and familiar. Marcus pressed his hand against the glowing symbols and closed his eyes. This was a monitoring station, he said, his voice distant. We called it Outpost 77 Alpha. It was part of the containment network. Containment network? Sensor arrays scattered across the galaxy. They watched for signs of breach activity. Marcus opened his eyes, looking troubled. The readings here should be stable. But they're not. Commander Velok studied his scanner. The energy levels are fluctuating wildly, almost like something is interfering with the systems. Other humans had gathered around the ruins. Sarah Martinez, the ship's engineer who had adapted to modern technology with frightening speed. David Kim, who seemed to understand alien languages he'd never heard before. Elena Volkov, who had started drawing star maps from memory. We all remember this place, Sarah said quietly. Not just Marcus. All of us. That's impossible, Dr. Neith said. You were all civilians on the colony ship. These are military installations. Were we civilians? Elena asked. I remember being a xenobiologist, but I also remember training with weapons I can't name. David nodded. I was a teacher, but I know things about quantum mechanics that humans shouldn't have discovered yet. Dr. Nith felt a familiar chill. Every answer led to more questions. Marcus, what exactly was done to your people before you went into exile? Memory modification. Personality overlays. They wanted us to live normal lives when we woke up. Marcus touched the symbols again. But the modifications are breaking down. Our real memories are coming back. Your real memories? We weren't colonists. We were the Guardian Corps, the humans who stayed behind to maintain the containment systems. Marcus turned to face her. We volunteered to have our memories suppressed and be put in cryogenic sleep. We were supposed to wake up if the containment ever failed. And it's failing now? Look around you, Dr. Nith did look around. The ruins were fully active now. Displays showing data streams she couldn't understand. But the humans could understand them. They moved among the control panels as if they'd been here yesterday. Sector 7 shows multiple breach warnings, Sarah called out. Whatever these systems were designed to contain is getting loose. How many breach points? Marcus asked, falling back into what looked like a command roll. 17 confirmed, maybe more. Dr. Nith grabbed Marcus's arm. Breach points for what? What are you containing? Before Marcus could answer, Elena screamed. She was standing near a large display, her face pale with terror. Oh God, they're already here. The display showed a star map of the local galaxy cluster. Red dots marked the breach points Sarah had mentioned. But as they watched, more red dots appeared. And they were moving. They're not breach points, Elena whispered. They're invasion sites. Marcus ran to the main control panel. His fingers moved across alien interfaces with practiced ease. Dr. Nith, I need you to contact your superiors immediately. Tell them to begin emergency protocols for first contact with hostile entities. What kind of entities? The Devourers. The things we found in the void between galaxies. Marcus's voice was grim. They exist in the space between thoughts. They feed on consciousness itself. That's impossible. Is it? Your people have developed psychic abilities, haven't they? Telepathy? Precognition? Dr. Nith nodded. Several Confederacy species had limited psychic talents. The Devourers can use those abilities against you. They slip into minds through psychic connections. Once they're inside, they can control entire populations. Sarah looked up from her console. The breach in Sector 7 is expanding. I'm reading massive psychic disturbances across 3 star systems. Commander Valak had been monitoring communications from his shuttle. Dr. Nith, I'm getting reports of strange behavior from several Confederacy worlds. Mass hysteria, violent outbreaks, people acting like they're being controlled. It's starting, Marcus said quietly. Just like before. Before? Dr. Nith demanded. 50,000 years ago. This is how it began last time. Marcus called up historical data on the displays. The Devourers found our galaxy and started possessing people. At first it was just a few individuals, then entire cities, then whole worlds, and what stopped them? We did. Humanity developed the ability to create psychic barriers. We could shield our minds and the minds of others from Devourer influence. Marcus looked at his fellow humans, but the cost was enormous. We had to change ourselves, become something more than human. Elena had recovered from her shock and was working at another console. The containment network is failing faster than projected. We have maybe weeks before total system collapse. Can you repair it? Not from here. We'd need to access the central control nexus. Marcus brought up another star map. It's located in the galactic core. The journey would take months, even with modern ships. Then we start immediately, Commander Velak said. I'll request a fast escort from the fleet. It won't matter. Sarah shook her head. By the time we reach the core, the Devourers will have consumed half the galaxy. We need a different approach. Dr. Nith studied the data flowing across the displays. What about the other humans? The ones who stayed hidden all these years? They're already moving, David said, pointing to another display. I'm detecting activation signals from Guardian installations across the galaxy. The hidden humans are coming out of concealment. How many are there? Unknown. But they've been preparing for this day for 50,000 years. Over the next several hours, they watched as the situation deteriorated rapidly. Reports came in from across the Confederacy. Entire star systems had gone silent. Ships that responded to distress calls found empty worlds where billions of people had simply vanished. They're not killing them, Marcus explained. The Devourers don't destroy consciousness. They absorb it. All those people are still alive, but they're part of the Devourer collective now. Can they be saved? If we can drive the Devourers back to the void, yes. But that's never been accomplished before. Dr. Nith felt the weight of despair settling on her shoulders. How could they fight an enemy that could control minds? How could they protect themselves from something that existed in the space between thoughts? There is one possibility, Elena said quietly. The weapon. The other humans went silent. Marcus shook his head. We agreed never to use it again. What weapon? Dr. Nith asked. Something we developed during the last war. A way to attack the Devourers directly in their realm between consciousness. Elena looked around at her companions, but using it requires sacrifice. Someone has to enter the void and confront them directly. That's suicide. Maybe. Or maybe not. Elena pulled up technical specifications that hurt Dr. Nith's eyes to look at. We're not the same people we were 50,000 years ago. Our abilities have grown during our sleep. The modifications to our minds have created new possibilities. Marcus studied the data. You're talking about weaponizing our own consciousness, turning our minds into bombs. I'm talking about becoming what we were always meant to be, the bridge between normal matter and psychic space. Elena's voice grew stronger. The Devourers made one mistake. They taught us how to exist in their realm. We can use that knowledge against them. Dr. Knight watched the humans debate their options. She realized that these people had been carrying the weight of galactic security for longer than any civilization had existed. They had given up everything to protect others, and now they were being asked to sacrifice themselves again. "There has to be another way," she said. Marcus looked at her with sad eyes. "Dr. Nith, some battles can only be won by those willing to lose everything. We learned that lesson a long time ago." The ancient ruins around them pulsed with increasing urgency. Warning signals flashed as more containment systems failed across the galaxy. Time was running out, and the awakened humans faced the same terrible choice their ancestors had made. But this time, the stakes were even higher. The Confederacy military response was swift and useless. Dr. Knight watched from the command center as Admiral Corex led 3 battle fleets toward the Rigel system, where an entire civilization had gone silent overnight. The fleets were the finest the galaxy had to offer. Advanced shields, quantum weapons, veteran crews from a dozen species, it didn't matter. "Admiral, we're losing contact with the lead destroyers," the communications officer reported. On the main screen, the massive Confederacy ships began to turn their weapons on each other. There had been no battle, no obvious attack. One moment they were advancing in formation, the next they were firing on their own allies. "The crews are being controlled," Marcus said from beside Dr. Knight. "The Devourers have taken them." Admiral Corex's face appeared on the communication screen. His expression was calm, but his eyes held an emptiness that made Dr. Nith's skin crawl. When he spoke, his voice carried an echo that seemed to come from very far away. "The resistance is pointless. Your ships will join us. Your crews will serve the collective. Opposition only delays the inevitable." Marcus stepped forward. "Admiral, this is Marcus Chen of the Guardian Corps. You need to retreat immediately. Your people can still be saved." Admiral Corex tilted his head in a way that looked wrong for his species. "Guardian Corps, we remember you. You delayed us before, but you cannot stop us. Your containment was flawed. Your barriers were temporary. We have learned to break them." The communication cut off. On the tactical display, the 3 fleets had completely turned on each other. Within minutes, most of the ships were destroyed. The survivors limped away from the battle zone, their crews now servants of something from beyond the galaxy. "This is what we feared most," Elena said quietly. "They've learned from their last defeat. They know how to counter our defenses." Commander Velak looked sick. 3,000 ships, 50,000 crew members, gone in minutes. "Not gone," Marcus corrected. "Converted. They're still alive, but they're part of the Devourer collective now. Every thought, every memory, every piece of knowledge they possessed is now available to the enemy." Dr. Nith pulled up reports from across the galaxy. The pattern was repeating everywhere. Military forces sent to investigate silent worlds came back changed. Merchant ships that responded to distress calls became part of the enemy fleet. Even research stations trying to study the phenomenon fell under Devourer control. "How do they do it?" she asked. "How do they take control so quickly?" "They exist in the space between conscious thoughts," Sarah explained. "Every time you form a thought, there's a tiny gap before you become aware of it. The Devourers slip through those gaps. Can you protect against it? Humans can. Our minds were modified to create natural barriers. But other species," Marcus shook his head. "We tried to teach the techniques to others 50,000 years ago. Very few could learn them." Elena brought up a galactic map showing the spread of Devourer influence. Red zones marked areas where they had established control. The pattern looked like an infection spreading across the stars. "They're not just taking random systems," she observed. "They're targeting strategic locations, communication hubs, military bases, research centers. They're building a network," David realized, "using the existing galactic infrastructure against us." Dr. Nith studied the pattern. "The red zones are expanding toward the core worlds. If they take the Confederacy capital, they'll have access to every database, every military secret, every scientific discovery." Marcus's voice was grim. "The war will be over before it really begins." Over the next week, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Entire sectors went silent. Refugee ships fled toward the outer rim, but many never arrived at their destinations. The Devourers were spreading faster than anyone could track. The hidden humans emerged from their long concealment, revealing themselves to confused local populations. Ancient installations that had been mistaken for ruins suddenly became active command centers. But even with their help, The galaxy's defenses crumbled. "We're fighting the wrong kind of war," Marcus said during an emergency council meeting. "Conventional tactics don't work against an enemy that can control your own forces." "Then what do we do?" Commander Velok asked. "We accept the truth. This isn't a war between civilizations. It's a war between different forms of consciousness itself." Elena had been working on something for days. She finally looked up from her displays with exhaustion in her eyes. "I've been analyzing the Devourer network. They're not just controlling individuals. They're connecting all their victims into a single vast mind. A hive mind? Worse. A collective consciousness that spans multiple star systems. Every person they absorb makes them smarter, more powerful." She brought up her analysis. "At the current rate of expansion, they'll have consumed the entire galaxy within 6 months. "But you found something," Dr. Nith said, recognizing the look in Elena's eyes. "Maybe. The network has a vulnerability. It's too large, too complex. If we could overload it, cause a feedback loop. The weapon we discussed before. Modified. Instead of attacking individual devourers, we attack the network itself, cause a cascade failure that forces them back to the void." Marcus studied her data. The power requirements would be enormous, and someone would have to deliver the weapon directly into the heart of their network. The galactic core, where their primary nodes are located. That's a suicide mission. Not necessarily. Elena's voice grew stronger. "We've all been changing since we woke up. Our consciousness has been expanding, adapting. I think we can survive in the void now, at least long enough to deploy the weapon." Dr. Nith felt a chill of realization. "You're talking about voluntarily entering the same realm as the Devourers. It's the only way to fight them on equal terms." The debate continued for hours. The awakened humans argued about the risks, the chances of success, the moral implications of using such a weapon. Meanwhile, the red zones on the galactic map continued to expand. Finally, Sarah spoke up. "The choice isn't really ours to make. The hidden humans are already preparing." She brought up communication logs from across the galaxy. Guardian installations were activating ancient protocols. Humans who had lived in secret for millennia were revealing their true nature and beginning some kind of massive preparation. "They're building something," David said, analyzing the data streams. Multiple construction projects across different star systems, all connected somehow. "It's the network," Marcus realized. "They're building a human consciousness network to counter the Devourer collective." "Using what?" "Us, all of us. Every human in the galaxy, hidden and awakened alike." Marcus's expression was a mixture of awe and terror. "They're going to link our minds together and create a weapon out of pure human consciousness." Dr. Nith stared at the data. The implications were staggering. "How many humans are there?" "Unknown. But if they've been reproducing in secret for 50,000 years, Elena did quick calculations. Possibly millions, maybe tens of millions. All preparing to join their minds together in a psychic battle for the galaxy's survival." Commander Velok shook his head. "The Confederacy needs to know about this. Our people deserve to understand what's happening." "Do they?" Marcus asked quietly. "This isn't their fight. It never was. This is humanity's responsibility. Our mistake to fix. But if you fail, everyone dies. If we fail, everyone becomes part of the Devourer collective, which might be worse than death." Dr. Nith looked around at the humans in the room. These people had carried an impossible burden for longer than her civilization had existed. They had sacrificed everything once before to save the galaxy. Now they were being asked to do it again. "There has to be another way," she said. "There is," Elena said quietly. "But you won't like it." "What?" "We teach other species how to create the same mental barriers humans have. Build a multi-species consciousness network. Share the burden instead of carrying it alone." "You said that was tried before." "It didn't work. It didn't work 50,000 years ago. But your species have evolved since then. Developed new psychic abilities. Maybe this time will be different." Marcus looked skeptical. "The risk is enormous. If we're wrong, we'd be giving the Devourers access to every mind in the galaxy. And if we're right, we save everyone instead of just surviving." The debate was interrupted by urgent alarms. The red zones on the galactic map had suddenly accelerated their expansion. Core worlds were going silent. The Confederacy capital itself was under threat. The time for debate was over. One way or another, the final battle was about to begin. Dr. Nith stood in the center of the most impossible gathering in galactic history. Representatives from every known species surrounded her on the ancient platform that had risen from beneath the surface of Nexus Prime. Zephyrians, Corvalians, Thek, Milari, dozens of others. All listening as Marcus Chen explained what they were asking of them. "You want us to voluntarily open our minds to human consciousness," Ambassador Zarak said, his 4 eyes showing deep suspicion. "To allow our thoughts to be connected to yours in some kind of network." "Yes," Marcus replied simply. "It's the only way to stop the Devourers. You're asking us to trust the species that created this threat in the first place." Dr. Neath saw Marcus flinch at those words. The truth hurt even when it was stated without malice. Around the platform, the hidden humans had revealed themselves, millions of them, emerging from every corner of the galaxy where they had lived in secret for 50 millennia. They stood ready to link their minds in the greatest psychic network ever attempted. "The human solution failed before," Elena said, addressing the gathering. "We contained the Devourers, but we didn't destroy them. Now they're stronger, smarter, more dangerous. We need a new approach. And if this network fails, if we give the Devourers access to every mind in the galaxy, then everyone dies quickly instead of slowly," Sarah answered bluntly. "Those are our choices." Commander Velak had been monitoring reports from across the galaxy. "The Devourers have taken the Confederacy capital. They're using our own communication networks to spread faster. We have maybe hours before they reach the outer systems." Dr. Nith looked around at the assembled representatives. Fear was visible on every face, regardless of species. They were being asked to make the ultimate leap of faith to trust their ancient enemies in the galaxy's darkest hour. "I'll do it," she said quietly. Every head turned toward her. Marcus looked surprised. "Dr. Nith, you don't understand the risks. If something goes wrong, I understand perfectly. You're asking us to share consciousness with humans, to experience thoughts and memories that might be completely alien to us." She stepped toward Marcus. "But I've been studying your people for months. I've seen your sacrifice, your dedication, your willingness to bear impossible burdens. If anyone can lead us through this, it's humanity." One by one, other representatives stepped forward. Not all of them, but enough. Scientists and diplomats who had worked with humans, military officers who had seen the Devourer threat firsthand, ordinary citizens who understood that desperate times required desperate measures. The process began immediately. Human technicians activated ancient machinery buried deep in the planet's core, psychic amplifiers that had been built 50,000 years ago, upgraded and modified by generations of hidden engineers. The very air around the platform began to shimmer with energy. "Remember," Marcus called out as the connection sequence began, "don't fight the link. Let your thoughts flow naturally. The network will organize itself." Dr. Nith felt the first tendrils of alien consciousness touching her mind. It was startling, like suddenly hearing someone else's voice in her head, but not frightening. Marcus's thoughts were warm, protective, tinged with deep sadness but also hope. Then other minds joined the network. Sarah's practical intelligence, Elena's scientific curiosity, David's artistic sensitivity. Human consciousness was more diverse than Dr. Neth had expected. Each mind was unique, but they shared common threads: determination, sacrifice, love for something greater than themselves. The non-human minds added their own colors to the growing network: Zephyrian logic, Corvalian emotion, Thek intuition. Instead of chaos, the different types of consciousness seemed to complement each other, creating something stronger than any individual mind. "It's working." Elena's voice echoed through the network. "The barriers are holding. The Devourers can't penetrate a multi-species consciousness field." But even as she spoke, they could feel the enemy pressing against their defenses. The Devourer collective was vast, spanning star systems powered by the absorbed minds of billions. It pushed against the psychic barriers with increasing force. "They're adapting," Marcus warned, "learning our defenses in real time." Through the network, Dr. Neith could perceive the battle taking place in dimensions beyond normal space. Human consciousness served as the foundation, their modified minds creating stable barriers against Devourer intrusion, but the other species provided flexibility, creativity, new ways of thinking that the Devourers hadn't encountered before. "We need to go on the offensive," Sarah said. "Defense alone won't be enough. How do we attack something that exists between thoughts? By thinking differently, by becoming something they can't comprehend or control." The network began to shift. consciousness flowing in patterns that had never existed before. Human determination merged with Zephyrian logic, Corvallian empathy combined with Thek wisdom. Each species contributed their unique perspective to a growing complexity that no single mind could have achieved. Dr. Neith felt herself becoming part of something larger, more beautiful than she had ever imagined. The network wasn't just a weapon. It was a new form of consciousness, a hybrid of every thinking species in the galaxy united in common purpose. The Devourers pressed harder against their defenses, but they couldn't adapt to something that was constantly changing, constantly evolving. Every time they learned to counter one pattern, the network shifted to another. Human creativity sparked new ideas. Alien logic refined them into practical applications. "They're retreating," David announced with amazement. "The Devourer Collective is pulling back from the core worlds." Through the network, they could sense the enemy's confusion. The Devourers had expected to face the same human consciousness they had fought before. Instead, they encountered something entirely new, something that broke their understanding of how minds could work together. "Don't let them escape," Elena urged. "If they reach the void, they'll regroup and return stronger." The network expanded, reaching across space through quantum entanglement and psychic resonance. Everywhere the Devourers had established control, the multi-species consciousness followed. Not to destroy, but to liberate. To free the absorbed minds and restore them to their original state. Dr. Neith felt the moment when they made contact with the first group of Devourer victims. Admiral Corex and his crews, still trapped within the collective, suddenly found their consciousness connected to the network. The contrast was shocking. Where the Devourer collective was cold and uniform, the Galaxy network was warm and diverse. "We can choose." Admiral Corex's thoughts echoed through the network, filled with wonder. "For the first time in months, we can choose our own thoughts." The liberation spread like a wave across the galaxy. Billions of minds that had been trapped in the Devourer collective suddenly found themselves free. But more than that, they found themselves part of something greater. The network welcomed them, healed them, restored their sense of individual identity while connecting them to the larger whole. The Devourers made one final desperate attempt to maintain control. They reached deep into the void, calling upon reserves of power that threatened to tear reality apart. The network shuddered under the assault, consciousness fragmenting as different species struggled to maintain coherence. "Hold together," Marcus commanded through the link. "Remember why we're doing this. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone." Dr. Neith felt the network respond to his words. The diverse minds of the galaxy pulled together, each species contributing their strength to the whole. The Zephyrians provided logical structure. The Corvallians gave emotional support. The Thek offered deep wisdom. Humans served as the bridge, connecting all the different forms of consciousness into a unified force. The final battle was brief but decisive. Faced with a form of consciousness they couldn't understand or control, the Devourers fled back to the void between galaxies. But they didn't go alone. The network followed them, ensuring they returned to their prison and sealing the barriers behind them. As the immediate threat ended, the network began to change again. Instead of dissolving, it evolved into something new, a permanent connection between the conscious species of the galaxy, allowing for communication and cooperation on a level never before achieved. "What have we become?" Ambassador Zarak asked, his thoughts filled with awe. "Something new," Marcus replied. "Something that never existed before. A truly united galaxy." Dr. Neith felt the truth of those words. The network hadn't just defeated the Devourers. It had created a new form of civilization, one based on shared consciousness and mutual understanding. The galaxy would never be the same. "Will the barriers hold?" Commander Velok asked. "Better than before," Elena assured him. "The Devourers understand now that they can't defeat united consciousness. They'll remain in the void, contained by their own fear of what we've become." As the immediate crisis passed, the network began to settle into its new configuration. Individuals retained their personal identity and freedom of thought, but they were also connected to something larger. A vast community of consciousness that spanned the stars. Dr. Neith smiled as she felt the wonder and joy flowing through the network. Humanity had finally found a way to share their burden. The galaxy was safe. Not because one species had sacrificed everything to protect,